Hello and welcome to the version 7.10 release notes review. So in this release, we start off with some changes to the e-commerce plans. So this is in response to concerns about competitive pricing and just the availability of features for the price points. So this is a very welcome change. We have basically two e-commerce plans, the basic and plus, where the max plan is more of like will become a custom solution. So four features from the plus plan, the attributes, inventory management, gift vouchers and discount codes are now available in the basic plan. And of course now plus has all features. So yeah, basic has become more powerful and plus is the new max, I guess. So yeah, once this rolls out, check your e-commerce plans to see if you can benefit from that. I think the changeover for the plans might need to go through a support ticket. There may be a restart on the subscription perhaps, but just submit a support ticket if this relates to you, and the accounts team will sort you out there. Okay, moving to the next item is decimal number support for custom properties. So in custom properties, for any module, we always had the number field. So in our property management, so we could set up a field like this, which was using the number option. And this was just an integer number. So it was just a whole number. So it was a little bit limiting in a lot of cases, particularly if you wanted to have your own like custom price field. And obviously a price would more often than not have a decimal place, but obviously other numbers may as well, and you couldn't really use the number input for that. So you had to revert to a string, which then ran the risk of non-number characters being put in there by the admin user. So now we have another field called number decimal, and this allows you to use strictly a number field, but allowing for decimal places as well as negatives. And there's just some notes here saying that this flows through to all other areas. So in the API, import and export, and even the front end create and edit forms. So fully supported throughout everything. And there's also a note here about just the different locales can have different sort of syntax or conventions on how they write. So some use commas instead of the full stop or the decimal point, and that will continue to work, but the system will just normalize that in the background to use the dot notation. But admin users can continue entering values in their local sort of format. So it will support both ways of doing that. Okay, next item is the advanced cleanup rules builder. So the data cleanup rules has had an upgrade in the way that we can construct those rules. So we now have full rule builder and exceptions builder. So depending on what you select, the conditions can be different, but now we can basically just construct those rules and add conditions together and create exceptions in a much more flexible way with date ranges and everything like that. So should have full capabilities there on defining the data cleanup rules. And then it goes into the specific logic on that. And the documentation for this will be updated very shortly as well. So you can go through that. There's also a note here that the manual cleanup rules, so not the ones that you schedule, but the just a manual sort of one-off ones, also have a specific period option, because you may want to clean up as a one-time cleanup. You want to specify a specific date range to do that cleanup in, so that doesn't relate to when you schedule one to reoccur over and over. So it's a handy feature as well. Okay, and yep, the exceptions sort of use the same principle where we can just build those exceptions into the rule set as well. Okay, moving down, we just have a little update to the Open API. So it's now in the CRM contacts. It's now just including the billing address, all the billing address fields in the API. So previously they weren't exposed in there. Okay, and moving on, also to do with the orders and customers. The orders are now going to capture a snapshot of the CRM contacts. So previously they sort of pulled the live contact records. So for the email first and last name and the billing and shipping addresses sort of came from the CRM contact record, but the order was a separate entity. So obviously if you deleted the contact, that would destroy the order and you wouldn't have that record any longer. Or if you changed the contact details, it would change the order. So the integrity of the history of that order wouldn't exactly be intact. So now the order takes a snapshot of the contact record at the time of the order, and that's what remains with the order for better accuracy. And it goes into details here about if the contact record is deleted, the orders now remain. However, the snapshot details are masked. So I assume that's for data privacy issues. But if you have the right permissions enabled in the admin for the admin user role, then you can reveal those details. So I'll have some set up here. We go to the CRM orders. So we can see this particular order here has some masked values here. That's because I've deleted the contact record, but I have the right permission set so I can actually reveal that data if I need to. But you can set the admin user not to have this ability if the privacy concerns warrant that. Okay, and just talks about how that's displayed in the list and detail views, but also the search behavior. So when you're searching for an order, I guess when you're searching for any of the contact information, again, if your user role has access to those snapshot details, then the search will work based on that. But if you don't have permissions, well, the search will only work on what's available, what data is exposed to you. And then it makes a note that in the export, the snapshot fields are always masked, so you can't get around revealing that information or distributing that information, I guess, if you don't have the right permissions. And then to complete the implementation of this, it's also now in the API, so it has its own endpoint. So again, if we look at Swagger, go to CRM orders, we can see down here we now have a snapshot endpoint. So that exposes the snapshot data via the API. And additionally, with orders, we now have a trash. So any orders that are deleted will go to trash for a 90-day period. So we can see we have the trash can, move to trash icon, and under the 3 dots menu, you can access the trash. And you can see I have one item in there at the moment. And that brings us to the next item, which is the orders trash management. So again, we can just click into the trash. You can't actually go into preview or view the main details of this, but you can restore them back to the orders view, or you can delete them permanently. And the trash is also exposed now via the API. So again, has its own endpoint. Heading back to Swagger. So here, orders trash. So we have get, delete, and put endpoints for the order trash as well. Okay, still looking at orders, we now have a VAT invoice number. So previously we just had invoice numbers, which incremented, but you could have gaps if you deleted an order or renumbered them yourself manually, created manual orders, things like that. However, there's now going to be a secondary VAT invoice number that increments and doesn't leave any gaps. So this has been introduced to provide a gap-free numbering stream that complies with the EU VAT requirements. So they can't have any missing invoices in the system. So the existing invoice number will stay consistent for those who are using that, and then the VAT invoice number will run separately from that as time goes on, I guess. But once it rolls out on your site, the first VAT invoice number will use the latest invoice number in your system and then carry on from there. Okay, and that's all the features. There are bug fixes which you can look through, but I will just point out a couple here because they're almost feature enhancements more than bug fixes. Firstly, in the portal, if you're setting your own branding for white labeling purposes, that now supports SVG images. So obviously that's a lot better for logo display. We also have just a little change in the export. So custom properties are now exported in alphabetical order. So because we now have the new property management and we can set up groups and different sections and different orders, there's, I guess, no clear definition of the order that these properties should be in. So for consistency, the export will just put everything in alphabetical order. So I guess that's a cleaner and more consistent approach. So it's just something to be aware of that's different now. And also there's been an addition here in the property management that we can now select multiple properties for moving them around. So we can command click here on a Mac or control click if you're on Windows and select multiple ones. You can see they're selected and we can move them all at once to different sections. So that just makes things quicker if there's a lot of items that you need to get visible or hide all at once. Okay, and that's the features for 7.10. Thank you.